Vivian Heidi from House of Heidi, and this is Archive EXE. Today we're going to be talking about the history of Peter Pan, and let's go ahead and get into it. Peter Pan was created by Scottish author J.M. Barrie. The character first appeared in Barrie's 1902 novel, The Little White Bird. In 1904, Peter became the star of the stage play Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up. The story introduced Neverland, Wendy Darling, Tinker Bell, Captain Hook, and the Lost Boys. But the real history behind Peter Pan is much darker and stranger than the Disney version. Barrie's inspiration came from real children, grief, and his own complicated relationship with childhood. So, who was J.M. Barrie? He was born on May 9th, 1860, in Currymer, Scotland. Barrie grew up in a large Scottish family and was the ninth of 10 children. His older brother David died at age 13 in an ice skating accident. David's death deeply affected Barrie and his mother. Barrie later became fascinated with the idea of eternal childhood, probably due to his brother dying so young. And eventually he moved to London and became a successful writer and playwright. Even before Peter Pan came, he was very successful. So in 1897, J. M. Barrie met the Llewyn Davis family in London's Kensington Gardens. He became especially close with the five boys, George, Jack, Peter, Michael, and Nico. Barrie entertained the boys with stories, games, and elaborate adventures. Their imaginary adventures became the foundation for Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. George and Michael were particularly important inspirations for the character. Barrie even created a fictional version of himself as Peter Pan during his games with them. And in 1904 or 1902, Peter Pan first appeared in Barrie's novel The Little White Bird. Barrie's Peter was very different from the cheerful Disney version that came later on. He was portrayed as a strange, almost supernatural child who refused to grow up. In 1904, Barrie introduced Peter as the central character in the stage play Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up. And this play also introduced many elements that we recognize today, like Wendy Darling, Captain Hook, Tinker Bell, The Lost Boys, and Neverland. The play became a major success in London and turned Peter Pan into a cultural phenomenon. But Barrie's original Peter Pan was considerably darker and much more unsettling than the character that most people know today. Barrie's original Peter Pan is not simply a lovable boy who refused to grow up. Peter is often self centered, careless, and frighteningly detached from death. Like, he just doesn't engage with death at all, he doesn't think it's real. In the original story, Peter says that when children grow up, they forget how to fly. Peter also forgets people Peter also forgets people he once knew, including children who have become close to him. So, for instance, in the book Peter Pan, he forgets that Wendy is even a person. Like, if he's not around them for long enough, or if he's away from them for too long, he forgets who they even are. And the Lost Boys face real danger in Neverland, and not all of them make it home. Barrie wrote that when Lost Boys begin to grow up, Peter thins them out. And that's all he says in the book, is that he thins them out, but I think you can guess what that means. Peter can also be very violent, particularly towards pirates and anyone he considers an enemy. Neverland isn't just a magical paradise, it's a place where children can become trapped forever. The central idea becomes much darker. To remain a child forever means escaping adulthood, but also losing the ability to truly grow, remember, and change. But death is surprisingly common throughout Barrie's original Peter Pan stories. Peter treats death almost like another part of childhood adventure. Like, he doesn't take it seriously. In Peter Pan, the Lost Boys fight pirates in battles where people can actually die. Barrie wrote that Peter thins them out when Lost Boys begin to get older, like I previously said. Peter himself seems almost unable to understand the permanence of death. Captain Hook is ultimately killed by Peter, who kicks him into the jaws of the crocodile. The story repeatedly blurs the line between play and something actually dangerous. This makes Neverland feel less like a children's paradise and more like a world where growing up or dying can be the price of staying young forever. Peter Pan doesn't just refuse to grow up, he exists outside the normal rules of life, time, and death. So Neverland can be viewed as a symbol of childhood itself, beautiful, exciting, but temporary. Time behaves strangely there, and Peter has little understanding of aging. Children can escape adult responsibilities, but they also risk becoming trapped in childhood forever. Wendy eventually realizes that she has to leave Neverland and grow up. Peter refuses because growing up is the one thing that he fears the most, so he refuses to let her leave. Barrie presents adulthood as something unbettable. I can't say that word. No matter how desperately we try to avoid it. Peter's eternal youth comes with a price. He cannot truly move forward with his life. He forgets people, repeats the same adventures, and remains emotionally frozen. Peter Pan gets exactly what he wants, and that's what makes his story so tragic. Wendy Darling begins the story as a child fascinated by Peter Pan and Neverland. Peter offers her the chance to escape childhood and never grow up. And at first, Neverland seems magical and exciting. She really enjoys it. She actually in the book she has to beg, well, in the movie too, she has to beg Peter to also bring her two brothers because he didn't want to bring the brothers. He had enough lost boys. He just wanted to bring Wendy to be their mother. And so Wendy loves it at first, and but she kind of realizes that yeah, she's going to be their mother. So she actually has to kind of grow up in Neverland to be their mother and to make sure they get their medicine and all of that. But Wendy eventually realizes that eternal childhood isn't exactly freedom. She chooses to return home with her brothers and the lost boys. Wendy eventually grows up, marries, and becomes a mother herself. Peter returns years later, expecting Wendy to still be a child. Instead, he discovers that she has grown old. Peter doesn't understand why Wendy can't simply remain the same forever. Her daughter Jane eventually becomes his new companion. So Wendy gets to grow up, but Peter is condemned to remain a child forever. And in the book, especially, Jay and Barry definitely frames it this way that Peter is the one that eventually that is like condemned to this, and it's good that Wendy got to grow up. In the movie, they kind of, they don't make it seem that way so much that being a child forever is great and everything, but in the book it's much darker and more realistic, of course. So Captain Hook is Peter Pan's greatest enemy and the captain of the pirate ship, the Jolly Roger. His obsession with Peter begins after Peter cuts off his hand and feeds it to a crocodile. The crocodile continues hunting Hook, following him because it has developed a taste for him. Hook's greatest fear isn't simply Peter, it's time itself. The ticking crocodile constantly reminds him that death is approaching. Unlike Peter, Hook is painfully aware that he is aging. This creates one of the story's biggest contrasts. Peter with his eternal childhood, and Hook with his fear of aging and death. In a darker reading, Hook represents the fate that Peter is desperately trying to escape. Peter fears becoming Hook, but Hook fears becoming nothing. The crocodile is one of the strangest symbols in the original Peter Pan story. It swallowed Hook's hand after Peter cut it off. It accidentally swallowed a clock, causing its famous tick-tock sound. And whenever Hook hears the ticking, he knows the crocodile is nearby. But the crocodile itself represents more than a monster chasing him. The ticking clock symbolizes time and the fact that nobody can escape it. Hook desperately tries to avoid aging and death. Peter, meanwhile, seems almost completely untouched by time. This creates a dark irony. Peter may escape growing old, but everyone around him eventually has to face time. The crocodile keeps ticking, time keeps moving, but Peter refuses to. So there was this recent viral TikTok controversy involving a woman who has reportedly spent more than a decade obsessing over Disneyland's Peter Pan character, including repeatedly seeking out different actors who portray him. The videos circulating online have sparked criticism because some viewers believe her behavior crosses the line from fandom into stalking or harassment. What's especially interesting is how closely this modern obsession mirrors the central warning built into Barrie's original story. Peter Pan represents the desire to freeze time and remain forever in an imagined childhood. But Barry's Peter is also incapable of forming normal, lasting relationships. He forgets people and continually repeats the same cycle. The viral situation raises a modern version of the same question. What happens when loving Peter Pan stops being about enjoying a story and becomes a refusal to leave Neverland? And there's an uncomfortable irony. Peter Pan was created as a story about the danger of refusing to grow up. More than a century later, that idea is still playing out in a very real and much stranger way. Barrie wrote Peter Pan as a warning about being trapped in childhood, but today some people seem determined to live inside Neverland. More than a century after Jane Barrie created Peter Pan, the character is still inspiring intense real world obsessions. So, like I said, in August of this year, 2026, a viral TikTok discussion has focused on a woman who has reportedly visited Disneyland repeatedly so many times to seek out Peter Pan performers, with commenters describing encounters where she follows or monopolizes their attention. These are online allegations, not established findings of stalking or wrongdoing. This is all just alleged. But that brings us back to the strange irony at the heart of Barry's story. Peter Pan is about refusing to leave childhood behind. Peter doesn't age, he doesn't move forward, he forgets people and simply returns to the same adventures. Wendy eventually understands something that Peter never does. Growing up isn't the enemy, it's part of being alive. The TikTok controversy shows how the fantasy of Neverland can become complicated when the fictional character gets confused with the real person wearing the costume. And this isn't entirely new. Disney character performers have faced obsessive fan behavior before. Historical accounts describe Peter Pan performers being followed and having personal information exposed online. Maybe that's the darkest thing about Peter Pan. He wasn't created to teach us how to stay young forever. He was created to make us question what happens when we refuse to grow up, because eventually everyone has to leave Neverland. This has been Archive EXE, the case of the boy who never grew up, status unresolved. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.